I'm going to show you how you create Friday Night Funkin' skins. So first, you're going to have to open your games directory and it'll come out as assets after you extract it from the zip file link in the description. You go into your assets folder, images, then you find the image that you want to replace. So I'm going to be doing Daddy Dearest. And you just drag it into your program of choice. I'm using paint.net, but you can use anything you want. You open up the thing in your program. Just make sure that you can have it transparent, otherwise your sprites will have a white box around them. Anyway, what you need to know is that these sprites have a bounding box that go around them. However far this pixel will go is how far that box will be. If you go outside of that box, then that means that your character will be clipping out of it and it won't appear in game. So you have to keep that in mind while you're creating. I'm going to do a simple character. What I like to do is I like to make the background a little transparent. Right, down, up. Here's the idol. Start with the idol. I'm just going to be creating, a circle with eyes. This is only to show the process. Normally it would be a lot more complicated and it would take much longer, but for the tutorial, let's just create a little circle. And remember that you don't have to follow the sprite exactly. And you can a bandana go out all the way to here because it's inside of the bounding box. What I do is I first create the character. Here's our amazing test character. And then we're going to start on the next frame, which is part of the other idol loop where the character is just standing around. See how it's right here under this little spike there? You have to get that as exact as possible with the next one. Otherwise, your sprite will jitter. Control-Shift-C, Control-V. You want to do a lot of copy and pasting. And what I normally do is I rotate the head. And if you had an actual character, what you'd want to do is you'd split it up into multiple. These look the same as this one except the eyes. I'm just gonna copy this again. Remember that it's in this location. It sounds hard, but I've gotten used to it after a while. Copy and paste the same frame for this one because it looks the same. This frame adjusted. They might jitter by like a couple pixels, but that's okay. Then you want to repeat the process for the next one. Again, rotating the head. See these frames. This one is pretty extreme, so you put that together. You have to be pretty exact with this, that you have to get it exactly here. You can't have it here because that would make it jitter, and it's pretty hard to get it when you're just starting out. Daddy Dearest is one of the easiest and simple characters to do, rather than doing something like Girlfriend, which has hundreds of sprites. What I do if this were a real character, I would open their mouth, usually give them a mic to hold, and then for these frames, these aren't the same. They're supposed to add emphasis, so make sure that they're different. What I do is I rotate the limbs. Of course, this character doesn't have any, but if it did, that's what I'd do. Usually the first frame is the hardest to make because the rest is just editing because you have your quote-unquote skeleton already done. Rotate this one up because it's the up pose, and then you can rotate it a little bit down and rotate it a little bit up. That's how I make these frames. I don't really pay attention to where they are exactly. However, I do rotate them a little bit for their animation. Again, just copy and paste the frame that you made before to another one to edit, and see there are frames to add emphasis, then just squash it. The more you rotate and mangle a sprite, or at least a rastered sprite, meaning that it's not a vector, you're gonna make it look blurry if you do that too much. What I usually do is I just copy the one that I had at the start so that I could just use that instead. Same thing, copy the sprite, whatnot, and rotate and edit them. You have to make sure that all of your poses are distinct from one another, because if I didn't, then this would look like the idle pose. You rotate it again, just a little bit. If you do it too much, then it'll look weird. You're gonna probably still have to edit them afterwards. Once you get pretty good at it, you'll catch these before they hit there. You have to make sure that that's aligned correctly, so find a benchmark like this part here. I know that this isn't correct since that's supposed to look like that if it's aligned correctly. And usually lining it up by the feet works very well, so then you can line it up easier. And if your sprite is clipping and you still want to use it, just downsize it. What I usually do for these is I have their mouth go like this, and for the down pose, I make their mouth open in a circle shape. I'm gonna add a mouth to this guy. I usually animate the mouths so that it looks like they're actually singing, and it helps distinguish them from the idle just a little more. That looks good. Save, and if you're using it as paint.net, save it as PDN or whatever, so then you can edit it later. Find the assets folder. You're gonna want to save the original where you want it in folder, just so that I have the original and it's easier. After you complete the drawing, you can save it as a PNG and make sure that it's named exactly the same thing. Capitals matter, and you have to save it as a PNG. You won't hear it because I have. You probably won't hear it, but I do. And since we replaced Daddy Dearest, what we can do is go into Fresh and see. But it's still not jittery at all. And you could spend some more time with the drawing part, and I do. But this is the basics of how you do it. So yeah, go crazy, make some great Friday Night Funkin' art.